Hello everybody, Balian here, and I'm bringing you a new kind of video today. I'm going to be giving you a breakdown and my picks ahead of the Fight Night event this weekend, Colby Covington versus Tyron Woodley. This has been requested a little bit on my channel. I thought it was a bit different from the normal content of the UFC 4 video game and other stuff that I do, but you know, if you guys want to hear it, then I will give you a little breakdown ahead of the event this weekend. We're just going to move through the card as it goes. I'll bring up the stats here and we can just discuss and talk, and I'll give you a little bit of an idea of how I think maybe the fights are going to go, or break down sort of the popular opinion of you know what everyone is saying, and we can discuss a little in the comments as well, and we can have a little chat about it. So here we go. We're going to kick things off, obviously, the main event this weekend. Really interesting matchup. I feel like there's a bit of buzz around this card this weekend. Typically, not always the case for a fight night. The whole card has got some interesting matchups on it throughout. Certainly it's a bit of a special buzz around this weekend, maybe because Tyron is a former champion. I would certainly consider him a well-known fighter, especially amongst a hardcore audience. The casuals, I don't know, maybe not so much, but he was a former champ. He did headline some big events. He had that fight against Wonderboy on the McGregor card, so there is some name value to this. Obviously, Colby as well, recently in a big event when he fought Usman. That was a big event. There was a lot of buzz around that, and he's an interesting character, and he's obviously very talented, and he has the skills to back up the trash talk, which obviously draws popularity from there as well. So, but I like the main event. It's a very nice main event. It's an interesting storyline because both are coming off losses as well. Rarely as a you know, a main event that kind of feels this hyped on a fight night when two people are coming off losses. But the victory means it means a lot to both guys in different ways as well. Now, obviously, the popular opinion coming in here, the thing that everybody is talking about, and obviously, you know, imagining the fight to go, Colby fights with a lot of pressure, and that is the key to really beating someone like Tyron. That's where we've seen his weaknesses previously. Essentially, I mean, that's what makes Colby the favorite in this matchup. He's going to come forward like he always does typically, put the pressure on, grapple against the cage when it's there, box just in close on the outside, throw a high volume of strikes, and just use the cardio to just wear down and break Woodley, which is how Woodley's lost in his last couple of matchups. That's how he lost the belt to Usman. That's how he's lost to Gilbert Burns as well, who's now going to go fight Usman for the belt. So that's the typical opinion. I think if we look at the keys to victory for Tyron, it's really about how he thinks he can win this matchup, because his big victories, his big title defenses, they've been against a different kind of opponent. Not that they haven't been legitimate, but someone like Wonderboy, someone like Darren Till, yes, they can fight moving forward. Wonderboy a little differently. Darren Till definitely puts a lot of forward pressure on people, not always with strikes. You know, he fakes from the outside, but he's constantly moving forward. Tyron's striking prowess, or where we've seen him be most successful, is with the counter shot, the pull right hand over the top, or just the right hand splitting the timing of an oncoming opponent. And that's what he's waiting on. You know, that's what got him to the title fight, that right hand, that pull right hand, that counter shot, and that's what won him the belt. But in the last two matchups, he's been against people who have just put so much pressure on him. They've not given him the space he needs, or just that feel. You know, he's not fired that right hand essentially, and this is why there's discussions of him maybe not being washed, but certainly, you know, he's had his title run, he fought in Strikeforce, so there is a question of that going into this. You know, if he can't pull the trigger like he used to do, then that conversation will definitely come up, and it's probably his hardest matchup. Maybe not ever, but certainly one of his hardest matchups in his last few fights. Obviously, Gilbert Burns is a similar matchup. There's more of a jiu-jitsu threat with Burns, but with Colby, there's definitely more pressure. You can expect more pressure and more volume. Maybe not as much power, but that's not really affected Tyron previously. The question is, how does Tyron think he can win this fight? If he thinks he can win this fight the same way he won all the fights up to the belt, by waiting and splitting the timing and countering with that right hand, then we're probably going to see it play out the way most people expect, where Colby just puts too much pressure on him to be able to find that moment to land that right hand, and ultimately he's stuck. He's frozen, as some people have called him, the frozen one, and he's not going to fire it, and he'll just get put against the cage, taken down when he gets taken down. And although he's a really good wrestler, and you know, he used to win Strikeforce fights with his top game, with his wrestler, with good jiu-jitsu, he's not really offensively used that against recent opponents. And when you've got two amazing wrestlers like this in a matchup, sometimes, you know, there's a grappling fight, but sometimes it's a stand-up fight. Now, I don't know if Colby will look to take Tyron down, but we have seen Tyron taken down in his previous fights. And, as good as his defensive wrestling is, he does find himself on the bottom and he's unable to get up often when he gets put in that position. So it's going to be how Tyron thinks he can win this fight. Does he think he can win it with one shot? If so, does he rely on that? Does he think he can win it with wrestling and try and implement some kind of wrestling game, which we haven't seen him use? It's all about what he's been working on in the training camp with Jorge Masvidal, what they've game planned for success. Because if the success is based around that right hand, I mean, maybe he lands it, maybe he doesn't, but typically based on his last performances, you can expect him to not be able to find the timing for that. And Colby, the game plan's simple, this is an interesting fight for him. He's returning off that title fight with Usman. It was a close fight, he took him 5 rounds, or was it to the 4th? It doesn't matter. The point is he stayed in there, and he certainly put up more of a fight than maybe Masvidal. Masvidal was a bit dangerous in those first 2 rounds, but as the fight went on, he wasn't as competitive as Colby was in that matchup. Not saying that this win gives Colby an immediate rematch, but there is definitely probably some buzz there for a rematch against Usman because of how good Colby looked. And it's going to be a question of how well he looks against Tyron Woodley here. Because, his pressure really does work against these strikers that look to land the big shot. People like Robbie Lawler, obviously people like Tyron, that's a very similar matchup. Obviously it's a different stance, and Tyron's got a better wrestling pedigree than Robbie, but you could probably, a sensible person would say that this fight plays out in the same way as that. Now, I know that's the opinion you've been hearing all across the internet, but yeah, I think for Tyron, it's how he thinks he can win this fight. Maybe he thinks, I can land that right hand, or maybe he comes to the conclusion of, it's not worked previously. I'm going to have to do something different. Some leg kicks would be nice. Some inside leg kicks against a southpaw of Colby. It's going to slow down that pressure, help, prevent the level changes. He's got great leg kicks, but again, Tyron's only success up to that title fight and with the belt was really his counter right, or his blitz. He has a great blitz. Can he get the blitz on Colby? Can he hurt him enough to gain the respect to just slow down the pressure, or will we just see Colby, get on top of him, manhandle him, rough him up, beat him up, dirty boxing, in close boxing? He's got very fast hands, Colby. So we'll see. We'll see if the frozen one is here, because if he does make a win, if he does get a victory, that does change the future career path for Tyron Woodley. So we'll see. It's an interesting fight. And it's kind of mirrored a little bit throughout the card, because we've got a lot of veterans taking on newcomers. We'll go on now to the next fight. Donald versus Nico. This is a great matchup. Look at Nico's shoulders in that one. This is a great fight as well. Not just because of what it means let's face it, what it means to both fighters. Donald Cerrone doesn't really mean anything to him at this point, apart from another win, which puts his, most wins in the UFC another step forward. I know that, recently, within the last 2 years even, he was talking about making a run for that belt. But I think he's off the back of 4 losses now. So since he made that little run, then he lost. This is 4 losses in a row for Cowboy. He does occasionally, I feel like the story of his entire career, which I'm sure you'll all agree with, has been, I'm in a situation where, I'm in line for a title shot because I've, strung together an amazing win streak, and then you lose, and then you fall off, and then he loses a couple, and there starts to be rumblings of, maybe he should maybe not hang him up, but maybe this is the decline of Cerrone, maybe he's done, and then he'll come back and be a top prospect and be right back in there. But he is ranked 14, and this is at welterweight. He's had some success at welterweight, but not against the very physical opponents. And Nico Price is not as muscular as some, but he is a very physical fighter. He does look strong, and he's strong in all positions, from the bottom, from the top, and he's aggressive as well. He's going to throw hands, and he's not going to give Cowboy any respect, and I doubt he'll give him the patience and the time that he typically needs to set up his striking rhythms and patterns, because it does always take Cowboy a little bit of time to relax and find his moments. Now, there have been many fights where Cowboy gets rocked or hurt, or maybe not even hurt, just starts to let those early rounds get away from him, gets pressured, gets beaten up a little bit, but he finds his way into the fight and starts to set up his techniques and set traps for his opponent. So it's going to be a question of whether Nico falls into that, or if he is going to look for the finish early. Nico's looked really good. He just lost to, I'm going to have a look here. I can't remember. It was such a good fight. His last fight here, Vicente Luque, who is an absolute killer at 170. And for someone who's in the co-main event, he has been on this win-loss recently. Obviously, Price against Vic. I mean, that's a good win against Vic. I think that was Vic coming up to 170, though, for the first time. So, you know, that's a new weight class for him. And then Jeff Neal is absolutely on fire as well. So the losses Price has are to these really, really high-level top prospects. And you can see the story here against Tim Means. You know, finished him in the first round. He's very aggressive and definitely has a killer instinct about him. And you've seen, I don't need to tell you, if you're watching this, then you've seen Price finish from all positions. It's an interesting battle, really, because you never really know how Price is going to look. He's got good stand-up, he's got good grappling, and he's got, you know, good ground and pound as well. So it'll be interesting. But against these veterans, against Tim Means right here as well, he picks up a win, drops one to Alisson. This is a legitimate win against Randy Brown. Randy Brown, you know, coming off of, I think it was looking for a fight, not the Contender Series. So he has proven himself against these up-and-comers, but this isn't a fight like that for Price. And although there is some credit or renown in beating Cowboy, you know, he's lost some of the shine that you get when you get a win over him, especially because he's on a 4-fight losing streak. And you know, if Cowboy loses another one, that's 5 losses. I mean, I'm not saying he should retire. I'd never say that. But I mean, I don't know what the UFC does with him except continue to put him in these fights. Maybe put him against Dan Hardy or someone, right? If Dan Hardy wants to fight, you know, or Diaz, Nick Diaz versus Cowboy Cerrone, what a fight that would be. But we'll see. Because if Cowboy wins, then he just gets another opponent down the line. That's another number 1 to his records. If Price wins, okay, there's a bit more momentum behind him. We can sort of, I think we'll see the limit of Price in this fight and his ability, because when people who have beaten Cowboy, these up-and-comers have beaten Cowboy, they've often done it quite cleanly, quite technically, and you get to see like what they're capable of. But if this starts to drag, you know, halfway through the second, around the 8-minute mark, that's when Cowboy starts to throw those head kicks. We'll see if Nico has taken him out there, and we'll see how the fight's going, because Cerrone's a lot tougher than people give him credit for. You know, occasionally he folds under pressure against the cage or when he's taken a big shot, but if people don't swarm on him and capitalize and finish him, typically he stays in there. And when he stays in there and realizes it's a fight and he starts to, you know, fight for his life almost, that's when you see Cowboy come alive. So we'll see if Nico can put it on him and get the finish. It's a nice co-main event, really, in terms of consequences. It doesn't mean a lot. A lot of these fights on this card, will move on for the rest of them, they have some interesting stakes. This one, not so much, you know, for either guy, maybe for Price, but we've already seen, you know, Price against some of the up-and-coming top guys, and you know, he's fallen short. So it's not like we have this young up-and-comer that's going to look to starch everybody. You know, Price is won, he's lost. Maybe he'll turn into something a little bit further down the line. But right now, he's not on a hot streak. And Cerrone, again, like, it doesn't really matter if he wins or loses at this point. His legacy is cemented. We can't expect him to, you know, jump back in there and make a run for it. So we'll see, though. So it's a fun fight. Not much on the line, but it'll be fun to see. And there we are. So next fight. Moving down the card again, one that a lot of people are excited for. I don't want to call it the people's main event because, again, the stakes are high, but only for one person, really. Mr. Khamzat Chimaev, who has been talking, obviously, an insane amount of trash to anyone on the internet he can get his hands on. I'm interested to see him continually perform. It's definitely one of those cases where any podcast you listen to, people are talking about this guy, talking about how good he looks in the gym and how athletic he is, and, you know, his well-rounded skill set, which is fine. But at the end of the day, if you're 8-0, how much adversity has this guy faced? Has he been put deep into, you know, the late rounds? Has he really felt the drain and the strain and the stress of an actual fight, you know, deep into the second, going into a third? And if the fight gets there, how will he look? Because a lot of, I mean, the wins that we've seen have been absolute starchings, absolute showcases, just destruction. You know, he's barely, I think last fight, his opponent didn't even land a strike. So it's going to be a question of, one, what kind of game plan does he implement? Does he come in? Does he just look to grapple and beat him up just to continue to show his dominance there? Does he look to try and show off more of his skill set? Maybe he feels like he doesn't want to grapple. Maybe he wants to demonstrate. He's definitely a fighter who'll be looking to make a statement so he can continue to draw attention to himself and talk trash. So we'll see what kind of a performance he is looking to showcase. And then Gerald Meerschaert, I mean, he's a tough guy. He's a bit of a vet, but again, if you look at his record, it's just wins and losses all the way down, because that's what he's been doing recently, right? His last fight is a loss. So again, it's not like Chimaev is going in there against another prospect. I mean, he's not being fed anyone. This is a test for him. But, you know, it's not like if Meerschaert wins this, he's then going to go on, because he's also on a streak towards working towards the title. Chimaev, obviously, this is a stone for him to continue to step on. They're already talking about that Damian Maia fight, obviously, which I think it was planned for the next opponent. But, you know, Meerschaert, he lost to Ian Heinisch. Now, Ian Heinisch this is round one. I mean, his last fight was a KO stoppage in round one. And Ian Heinisch is typically not someone who gets first round finishes. He drags the fight late, makes these great comebacks. That's what makes Ian Heinisch good. He does have a win over Darren, who was a bit of a prospect, but that was a third round submission. You know, that was kind of a comeback. You know, it was a very backwards and forwards fight. So even that win, that's not an easy win for him. You know, he doesn't look amazingly dominant in that fight. And then he lost to Eric Anders, your boy. Obviously, it's a tough matchup, but again, you know, 3 rounds decision. It was a good fight, but you know, this is not someone who is anywhere near as highly touted as Chimaev. He's not shown some crazy ability. I mean, he's had multiple chances. You know, look, he's been in the UFC for a long time. All of these fights, you know, are in the UFC, and it's, you know, 2 wins and a loss to Santos, who did go on to fight for the title, picks up a win against Eric Spicely, and then Pichota. Yeah, I do remember that one. But then obviously when he comes up against another top contender like Jack Hermansson, he gets you know, a loss in the first round by sub. And Jack Hermansson's a demon. You know, he's someone who will actively go out and aggressively look for the submission. I mean, Chimaev is going to kind of implement, I'd expect, a similar game plan in terms of the grappling offense. So, you know, we've seen him finished. We've seen him finished early. In his last fight, he's been finished early. So honestly, it's kind of a showcasing for Khamzat Chimaev. Again, the odds will show that. I know that we kind of typically that's what's expected here, is that he goes in and runs through him and looks great and gets another opponent, and this just builds his momentum towards, you know, a title run, whatever he wants to do. But more often than not, that's probably going to happen. This is kind of the tale of the card, really, in that, yeah, we have these interesting matchups, but one person is kind of heavily favorited, and you know, although as much as we'd like to think that this could be a tough test for him, typically we've seen Meerschaert finished by maybe lesser fighters. Maybe not. We don't know the full potential of Hermansson or Chimaev at this point, but it is definitely that aura of, okay, this could be a fun fight, or we could just see exactly what we expect. He runs through him and he goes on to the next guy. So the stakes, again, I guess they're high, because if he loses, it's a bit of a bump in the road, but at this point, I wouldn't even consider that a bad thing. You know, slow him down a bit, get some more fights in, work his way up a bit slower, stop catapulting yourself. If you've got this much potential, then there's no need to rush, you know. Let's see you against some other people. So, you know, even if he does lose, it's not the end of the world, but the stakes not typically too high. If Meerschaert wins, okay, great. You know, I don't expect it's some kind of dominant performance where he, you know, from the get-go, he's beating up Chimaev. It's probably much more likely if Gerald gets a win, maybe Chimaev slows down a little, starts to gas, maybe something like that. Maybe catches him with something. I don't see Meerschaert coming out from the bell and just putting it on Chimaev and proving to everyone that he's some, you know, prospect ready to go. He's a veteran. It's going to be a fight, or maybe it won't. Maybe he'll just get grappled. But a win for Meerschaert, yeah, it's impressive, but you know, he still has to beat like 4 or 5 other opponents to get anywhere near a title shot, whereas a win for Chimaev just continues his momentum. So interesting matchup, but again, I don't know, the stakes, you know, it's still going to be fun. This is a fun fight card, you know. If you like this, by the way, I'll do a breakdown for the next Saturday's card, which obviously has title implications and a title fight. So we'll see that one. You let me know. Next fight. All right. We are seeing once again the return of Mr. Johnny Walker against, you know, Ryan Superman Spann, who has looked pretty good in recent fights as well. He's obviously 6'5", which has been an advantage for Spann, but then, you know, Johnny Walker hit 6'6", so you forget that. And the reach, 82 inches for Walker too. So this will be an interesting fight. I think, again, this is nice showcasing, because this is a good matchup, because obviously Johnny Walker was someone who looked phenomenal. 3 first-round finishes, and then he's off the back of 2 losses now, or just 1. Let's see. I can't remember if it's 2 in a row or just 1. Right, so this is when he had the injury after Misha Serkinov. And first of all, The clinch work against Roundtree was very impressive because it showed quite a well-rounded arsenal. Then he had that crazy spinning back fist knockout against Ledet. Now, Ledet has shown flashes of brilliance in his boxing, but he's definitely a bit of a lackadaisical fighter. So coming into this, I don't think, it's not that he didn't take him seriously, but he almost coaxed him in. And it was a crazy finish, great finish, 16 seconds as well. Then he gets a bit of a tougher challenge in Meerschaert, who honestly, at this point, he didn't get enough credit over this. It was a flying knee, I think. He blitzed him. Cerrone has looked very good recently, but against Walker, it does. What am I saying? The point is, he had a 3-fight win streak. Then he injured himself in that celebration, tore his shoulder. Was it a rotator cuff? Maybe. Didn't think much of it, and he's out for a while. March to November. I suppose it's not that long, but he had for November, February, March. That's pretty quick. Comes back in November, so a fair few months later, and Corey Anderson KOs him in the first round. This was the return fight for Johnny. This is the hype fight for Johnny. This is how good does he look? Is he injured? This is a legit opponent. Corey Anderson very happy with that win, who I think he's gone to Bellator now, so he even rode that momentum by taking off a contender to move on. I think he's in Bellator. Maybe I'm going crazy. Who cares? It's Corey Anderson. Just kidding. So there we saw the limit almost of his capacity, because he got beaten up, he gassed a little, he got slowed down and then finished by Corey. Then we saw a 3-round fight, which was the first time we'd seen him go out of the first round in the UFC against Nikita Krylov, who at this point is pretty much a vet. I mean, he left the UFC, he went over to a Russian promotion, if I'm not mistaken, got some interesting wins and some interesting looks over there, and has come back and has looked pretty good. So 3-fight wins. Three wins in a row, and now 2 losses in a row. If he loses to Spann, that's 3 losses in a row. And Spann has looked good too. So this, to me, is a matchup of former highly touted prospect, now on a 2-fight skid. We'll match him up with a new highly touted prospect. So this is a case of, can Ryan Spann steal the momentum from Johnny, or any momentum that he has left, steal the shine that Johnny has attached to his name, because he looked good. I mean, remember, people were talking about him versus John Jones, and it's going to be crazy, because that was when he was winning. It was around the time where John was just knocking through those opponents like Anthony Smith, and then Mahata or Santos, Thiago Santos. So then it was like, oh yeah, Johnny, throw him in next, another win, because he's on that momentum. That's all it took at that time. Get a couple of wins together in 205, you could fight John Jones. But that's gone now. He's going to have to work his way back. He's probably only two or 3 wins away from getting back to where he was, like a knockout, an impressive knockout in Johnny Walker fashion, would probably catapult him back to that position. But again, he's coming against Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann has looked very good recently, and he has some momentum behind him now. I mean, the Alvey fight was great. Alvey's such a tough competitor. And Devon Clark, this was a good fight too. Devon Clark looked really good up to this point as well. Lost to Nogueira in round 1. I don't even remember that fight, but that must have been interesting. And to Robertson as well. Yeah, on the Contender Series, he lost to Robertson, but then he got a short notice replacement against Henrique. I'm guessing that's what happened. So lose your contender 3 seconds. Oh man, I need to get back and watch this. Okay, well that doesn't bode well if you're fighting someone like Johnny Walker. But the point is, Spann, 1, 2, 3, 4-fight win streak at 205. It means a lot. Notice how much less hype is around him when Johnny was on a 3-fight win streak. But if you don't know the name Ryan Spann, you should. He is looking good. This is his chance to steal the thunder from what's left of Johnny Walker. We'll see if it happens. I haven't really talked too much about the matchup because I don't really know how Walker's going to come out. Is he going to come out and look to blitz him with flying knees and spinning stuff and just run him over? Or is he going to fight a bit more calmly, a bit more patiently like we saw in his last outing? But went 3 rounds against Krylov and he lost. So we'll see. Interesting fight. I guess there are some kind of stakes because we're looking for new contenders at 205 because the division is wide open right now. Number 11 versus number 12. Couldn't be closer in the rankings. I'm interested. We'll see. I haven't actually made my picks. I'll do all my picks at the end. Okay. Next fight here, Mackenzie Dern showing up against the veteran now, Randa Markos. I always like Randa since she was on the, or Randa Markos, since she was on the show. Always interesting, liked her attitude and her mindset towards fighting. But this is an interesting fight because Randa's at this point now where she can basically compete with anyone. She's been on win-loss, and she's just a veteran of the sport. So this will be interesting. She's 10-9, Randa. So, literally, that's been the story of her career. This is at 115 again, though, which is kind of concerning. I haven't checked who the weigh-ins. I assumed they weighed in okay, because Mackenzie Dern, you know, if you ask me, she probably would do better at 125. She's, you know, she's 5'4". I guess that's not big, but she's kind of a broader girl. And she has had problems with weight in the past. So 115 again, okay, fine. If this is where you want to compete, she can compete here. 125 is kind of open as well, and I'd love to see Mackenzie Dern's, if she gets everything together and pulls her game together, where she can consistently implement her offensive grappling, her against, you know, Shevchenko, it's not a fight now, but down the line, you know, aggressive jiu-jitsu against Valentina. I mean, that's a matchup we've not seen Valentina take. It's all been striking against Valentina. Not that Mackenzie would try to compete there, but, you know, maybe she could tap Valentina. I mean, Valentina's got great jiu-jitsu as well, so we'll see. But the point is, this is an interesting matchup. This is a showcasing for Dern. Randa, again, she's at the point in her career where if she gets a win, it's fine. It's on to the next one. It's back in. She's been, you know, unable to string any kind of win streak together. You can just see, you know, wins. I can't even see. Again, she often gets matched up against these up-and-comers like Alexa Grasso here. Nina Ansaroff, that was a tough fight, and Ansaroff looked really good in this matchup. She's looked really good recently. But I think she's up to 125 now, if I'm not mistaken. So there we go. Angela Hill, you know, a submission in round one. So that just does show she's obviously got confidence in her grappling. But Angela Hill's lost to submission a few times. Claudia Gadelha, the fight in the top of the, you know, the best of the best there at 115. But that kind of a matchup like this where it goes 3 rounds. I mean, I don't know what the potential or the ceiling is on Randa Markos, but you fight someone like Gadelha, you're going to learn from that experience. You're going to be better because of that. And then up here against Ashley Yoder, comes back with a win in that decision, so that must have felt good coming off the back of that. So she's trying to put a win streak together, but at the end of the day, this is just a name and a body in this division who can match up Mackenzie Dern with and just give her like somewhat of an interesting look and maybe a competitive fight. She lost to Amanda Ribas, who looks like an absolute killer as well, so you can't really lament her last loss. This is the best of the best, but she often gets put in these matchups. I mean, Yoda looked okay coming into the UFC, hasn't really turned out as well as most people thought. You know, this is her matching up against these tough tests, these up and comers. I mean, she's had no easy fights, Randa Markos, no easy fights at all. You know, Nina Ansaroff's not an easy fight. Angela Hill's not an easy fight. Gadelha's not an easy fight. Yoda at the time, now you might call it slightly easier, but Ribas, so she's constantly going against the best of the best. So you know that she is not going to be intimidated by the name tag, the fame, you know, the association that comes with fighting Mackenzie Dern, because she's so scrappy, man. And you know, obviously she lost at Ribas, but that's the only loss she's got, right? Yeah. So the Yoda decision. Oh, I thought she tapped Yoda. 450 decision. What? You know, Cooper's boxing's not looked too bad, but obviously there we go, just coming in first round sub. Hannah Cyphers, you know, Shockwave is, I mean, maybe this is 115. I mean, Hannah Cyphers is small, right? Like against Mackenzie Dern, it's going to be kind of a no-brainer if it goes grappling. I mean, maybe we'll see. But the point is, she's looked okay. We're going to see how good Mackenzie Dern is. Obviously, she's a very, very decorated jiu-jitsu competitor. When you make that transition to MMA, you need time to round out your game. This is a tough test for Dern. Randa, you know, it's another up-and-comer against Randa. We'll just see if she can string some wins together. She's a vet. She's just fighting because she loves to fight, probably. You know, you could see her eventually make a title run, maybe, but we've kind of seen where her ceiling is. So, a test for Dern. I'm interested. It'll be a fun fight for sure. It should be a fun fight because Randa always makes it a fight because she can compete everywhere. So I'll be interested to see if it goes to the ground, how well Randa Markos can compete there. Right, the final fight on the main card. We have the return of Darren, the dentist Stewart, against Kevin Holland. This is a fun fight to kick off the main card. For a couple of reasons. It should be a striking battle. It should be interesting. Darren Stewart, obviously, from the UK, from East London, no doubt. I've spent some time living in East London. He came into the UFC, 3 losses, and then he got a win in his 4th fight. So to be fair, he's even lucky to get a 4th fight. So there must have been some potential behind him there. But I mean, he's actually fought a lot more since then. Oh wow! So there we go. His first 3 losses against, not even against really top name competition. I mean, you don't really recognize any of these fighters off the page, which just goes to show, he lost a decision and then, round 1 submission, round 2 submission, so sub twice. Then he gets the knockout against Eric Spicely, who's a vet. Not really an interesting matchup here, but Stewart he's building some momentum. So this is an interesting fight for him as well, because we're going to kind of see where his ceiling is. This is a great card for just testing fighters against, hard opposition, just to see where they top out, see where they can go. Lost to Shabazian. Okay, so 2 wins, Bird, Stewart. Nice. Both by KO. This is what the dentist has done. Drills people. That's why they call him the dentist. So this is good for him. The Ultimate Fighter Season 28 finale, I'm sure that is. Shabazian, tough matchup. Okay. Took him to decision. Shabazian finishes a lot of people. Then picks up a win over Lewis here, who's looked fairly recent. Looked pretty good recently. Dern win as well. Nice win there. And then Maki Patola, who I thought had been looking really good up until this point. It sucks because I like both of these fighters, so it wasn't interesting, but gets a sub over Maki Patola there. So 2 decisions and then a sub. So he's coming off the back of a first round finish. I'm sure he'll feel good. He's coming off of 3 straight wins as well. So he probably feels like he's got some momentum. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he was undefeated before he came to the UFC. 5, maybe he only had 1 loss. So the dentist is looking good. He's found his groove. Against Kevin Holland, who is another one of these up-and-comers who is coming off the back of, I believe he was in the Contender Series, if I'm not mistaken. It will probably show on the card here. Maybe he's been here for a while. Maybe not. But yeah, he's looked good, but nothing too special. He's another one of these guys who's, like I said, an up-and-comer. Middleweight is an interesting division to be an up-and-comer. I expect this will be a nice striking matchup. Probably go 3 rounds to get us off, or maybe we'll see something special from either guy. 6'3" at middleweight is kind of interesting. Yeah, we'll see. I'm cheering for the dentist on this one. I care more about the dentist's potential and how he looks coming out of this, because he before he got to the UFC, he was finishing everybody. He looked fantastic. So we'll see. We'll see how he looks. Just having a quick look at the rest of the card. I'm not going to break down every single fight here. But just to pick some names ahead, Jordan Espinoza is fighting. That'll be an interesting matchup. He's looked pretty good. 13 versus number 14 here, at 125. So we'll see how this division shapes out. It's kind of piecing itself together. There's been some new talent, so that'll be an interesting fight. Meerschaert Bektik is back. He was incredibly highly touted. He was undefeated at one point in the UFC, dropped 3 losses now. So this is just, what has he been away? What has he worked on, and how's he going to look coming back into the UFC? Can he put some wins together? A nice matchup here at 125. The women's 125 division is always hot. I don't really know much about either of these ladies here, so I'll be interested to watch that one. Jessica Rose Clark back again. Again, another interesting matchup there. Just some nice cards to get us off. Yeah, and Derek Minor. We've seen Minor fight a few times now. And TJ Larame, I think he was on the Contender Series as well. 0-0-0. Interesting. That's not right, is it? 12-3 at featherweight. Yeah, I think we had seen him. And this is his debut here in the octagon. So, interesting fight. Just to see him perform. Look at that eye he's got on his shoulder. So that's good. Right, let's go back to the main card. And we'll go back to the main event here. And make it just click on the main card. Right. Okay. Let me do my picks. Logic dictates, with all sense and purpose, that I pick Colby Covington based on his last performances and based on Tyron's last performances. If you look at how Colby's won and how Tyron's lost, those completely match up. All of Colby's previous keys to victory are here in this fight, and none of Tyron's really seem available. That's why I kind of like it, because the odds are so in favor of Colby. So we're either going to see 2 things. Colby not surprising anyone, implementing the game plan and doing exactly what he does best, or Tyron surprising everyone and doing something that we don't expect. Maybe launching himself back up there. I don't know if he's got another title run in him. This is literally the fight to see that. So I'm taking Colby, as most of you probably are. Cerrone versus Nico. I like this fight. It's kind of hard to predict where it's going to go. Again, the stakes aren't very high. But it's just a fun fight, just a bit of violence at the top of the card. I don't know how much Cerrone's got left in him. He's off the back of 4 straight losses. Is this the kind of fight where he's going to get up out of bed and try and fully commit and go as hard as he can to get a victory? Probably not. Is this the kind of fight where if he starts to lose, he's going to switch it on and engage? Maybe. Will Nico Price put him out before then? Also maybe. I'd like to see Cerrone shoot for a takedown. I don't know if he will. He's probably not seen much tape on Nico because he typically doesn't watch a lot of tape. I think Nico gets it done, most likely. Just there's a lot of punishment that Nico dishes out. And, Cerrone's very hittable. So I think I'll take Nico Price in this one. Tough to do because I think Cerrone can win, but I think that Nico probably just starts piecing him up, and Nico's pretty tough. He's going to be hard to put out. Cerrone's going to have to knock him out. If he knocks him down and gets on top, he probably isn't going to be able to finish him. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I think I'll take Nico though. Khamzat Chimaev versus Gerald Meerschaert. Again, so I feel like he has an aura about him of either, you're on board and you're like, let's see what this kid's got, or you're like a bit like, man, this cocky guy coming in saying he'll beat anybody. He hasn't beaten anybody yet. Yeah, we'll see. But so it makes you kind of almost not want to pick him. But if you look at, how he's beaten the previous opponents and people talk about him, yeah, okay, people are talking about him because it's hype, but they're talking about him for a reason. Gerald Meerschaert, we've kind of seen what he's capable of and what he's not capable of. I think Chimaev gets it done relatively easily. I think he is just that good. Johnny Walker versus Ryan Spann. Interesting fight. Spann has been put out previously. It depends on what Walker does, how much confidence he's got, and how much he has been compromised by that shoulder injury. I'll take Johnny Walker because I don't think we've seen everything he's capable of, and I don't think we'll get 3 wins for him and 2 losses and then 3 losses and he's done. I think he's got more to showcase for himself, and I think hopefully he's fully recovered and he's able to just do what he does best, and he hasn't had his confidence too shaken by it. Like we saw Michael Pajeda recently, who's the capoeira guy at 170 who throws a bunch of spinning stuff, the guy that dances, right, if you don't know the name. He came back and he's kind of reinvented himself and tightened his game up, and the weapons he's very dangerous with, he was able to showcase them in his last fight. Maybe we'll see that from Johnny, or maybe we'll see him go for that first round knockout. I'm going to take Johnny because I still have faith in this guy, although Ryan Spann is legit, excuse me. So there we go. All right, Mackenzie versus Randa. I think Mackenzie gets it done. Ultimately, I think this becomes a grappling match. I don't think Randa's got the striking to stop Mackenzie on the feet or to put her out or to give her problems where she's not able to implement her grappling. I think Mackenzie gets the fight to the ground and she gets the win, probably by submission. And Kevin Holland versus Darren Stewart. This could go either way. We've seen Darren look great outside of the UFC. He's putting it together inside of the UFC. Kevin has just been kind of consistently able to implement his game on people. I think it's going to be tough. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure from Kevin on Darren, but I think Darren... I'm going to take Darren just because I like Darren Stewart. I think if it goes late, I almost feel like power plays a lot into this fight, because I feel like, he's going to be hard to put away. If it goes to decision, then you got to think that Kevin probably won the fight because he was able to use his range and piece him up and work in the clinch a little. But I think it could go a little late. Darren could wear the pressure and find a finish at some point. Maybe. I'd like to see it. All right, there we go. There's my breakdown for the event this weekend, September 19th. Woodley versus Colby. Let me know in the comments what you think, who you think is going to win. If you agree or disagree with anything I said, that's fine. It's my opinion. Maybe you think I'm crazy. If you like these, let me know. I will do more of them. There won't be a companion for this card, but I'm thinking next Saturday for the September 26th card, whatever it is, the Adesanya card, I'll probably do a fight companion on my YouTube for that. Maybe if you want to see it, let me know. All right, thank you very much for watching. Appreciate you. Have yourselves a lovely day. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and I will see you then. Take care.